My name is Ophelia Reed, and I'm 28 years old. 6 months ago, I flew from San Diego to New York City for my sister Evelyn's wedding. When I arrived at the venue and told them my name, the receptionist paused. She checked the list once, then again, then a third time. Her smile slowly faded into something softer, almost apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said quietly. "Your name isn't on the guest list. I thought it was a mistake. It had to be." So I stepped aside and called my sister. She answered on the second ring, annoyed. "What is it?" "Ophelia, I'm busy." "I'm at the venue," I said. "They said my name isn't on the list." There was a short silence. Then she laughed. Cold, sharp, unfamiliar. "You really thought you'd be invited?" And just like that, I understood. So I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply walked over to the gift table and placed a small silver box among the towering stacks of designer packages. Then I left. Hours later, when Evelyn opened that box in front of 400 guests, she saw what was inside, and she hasn't stopped calling me since. But I never answered. Before I tell you what was inside that box, take a moment to like this video and subscribe only if you genuinely enjoy stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? Because to understand why that one small gift destroyed everything my sister had built, I need to take you back. Back to the moment I realized I was never truly part of this family. I grew up in a tall brownstone on the Upper East Side. From the outside, we looked perfect, elegant, wealthy, respected. The kind of family that hosted charity galas, summered in the Hamptons, and knew exactly which names mattered in every room. But inside that house, there were two daughters, and only one of them mattered. Evelyn was 3 years older than me. She had the larger bedroom, custom dresses, private piano lessons, dance recitals that both my parents never missed. I got what was left behind: her old clothes, her forgotten things, and silence. I understood my place in the family on my 10th birthday. I had been counting down for weeks. 10 felt important. Double digits. I imagined balloons, a cake with my name on it, maybe even a party like Evelyn had the year before, with ponies, catered food, and dozens of classmates laughing in the garden. That morning, I woke up early and ran downstairs. The house was quiet, too quiet. My mother stood in the kitchen, talking on the phone about Evelyn's upcoming debutante event. My father had already left for work. Neither of them looked at me. "Mom," I said softly, "it's my birthday." She covered the receiver for a second. "I know. Sweetheart, we'll do something later." They didn't. But that night, there was a knock on my bedroom door. It was my grandmother, Margaret Reed, my father's mother. She stepped inside, holding a small wrapped box. "Happy birthday, my beautiful girl," she said, sitting beside me. I opened it slowly. Inside was a camera. Not a toy, a real one. Metal body, leather strap, solid and heavy in my small hands. "You see things differently," she said gently, brushing my hair back. "You have an artist's eye. One day, the world will see it too." I didn't understand it then, but that camera changed everything. And my grandmother. She knew exactly what she was doing. 8 years later. I graduated high school with a full scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design, one of the best art schools in the country, for the first time. I thought, maybe now they'd notice me. The ceremony was on a bright Saturday afternoon. I had even been chosen to give a speech. I practiced for weeks, imagining my mother smiling, my father finally looking proud. That morning, I came downstairs in my cap and gown. Evelyn sat at the table, scrolling through her phone. My parents stood nearby, focused on my father's laptop. The ceremony starts at 2, I said. We should leave by 1 to get good seats. My mother didn't look up. Something came up. My chest tightened. What do you mean? My father finally glanced at me. Evelyn has a networking brunch with Morgan and Clark. He said, it's important for her future. We can't miss it. I stood there, holding my speech, wearing my graduation gown. It's my graduation. My father's expression didn't change. Photography isn't a real career. Ophelia. His voice was flat. You should consider something practical, like business, like your sister. Evelyn smirked and said nothing. So I went alone. I gave my speech to a room full of strangers, and when they called my name, when I walked across that stage, I searched the crowd, hoping, just once, to see someone who came for me. And I did. One face, front row, clapping louder than anyone. My grandmother, after the ceremony. She took my hands in hers. Remember this, Ophelia, she whispered. The most valuable things in life aren't always the ones people fight over. Sometimes, they're the ones quietly given to the right person. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then, but years later, standing outside my sister's wedding, holding that small silver box in my hands. I finally did. The next part of this story includes some fictional elements and AI-assisted storytelling, created to deepen the emotional experience and reflection. Thank you for being here and listening. And if this isn't the right moment for you, that's okay. The story will still be here whenever you're ready to return. Now, let me take you deeper into what really happened. He sat down across from me and placed a manila envelope on the table, his fingers resting on top of it for a moment. Your grandmother came to see me 2 years ago, Daniel Whitaker said calmly. She was very clear about what she wanted. What I'm about to show you is separate from her public will. Then he slid the envelope toward me. Inside were 2 documents and a letter. My hands felt unsteady as I opened it. The first document was a notarized amendment to her estate. I read it once, then again, and a third time, just to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding. The Reed family jewelry collection. Every piece, valued at over $2 million. It all belonged to me, not to my mother, not to Evelyn, to me. My breath caught as I reached for the letter. My dearest Ophelia, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer there to say these words to you myself. But I need you to understand why I made this decision. Evelyn sees these pieces as trophies, symbols of status to wear, to display, to impress. But you see something different. You see the stories behind them. You understand that beauty isn't about owning something, it's about preserving what it means. Your mother and sister will be upset. They will say I was mistaken, but I have watched you grow into someone extraordinary, even when no one else chose to look. These pieces belong with someone who will honor them. They belong with you. All my love. Grandmother Margaret. By the time I finished reading, my vision had blurred. I pressed the letter to my chest as tears slipped quietly down my face. She also left instructions. Mr. Whitaker added gently. She wanted this to remain private, until you decide the right moment to reveal it. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. Carefully, I placed everything back into the envelope and tucked it into my bag. When I walked out of that church, I carried more than grief. I carried a truth no one else knew. A truth I would hold on to for 6 months. I didn't realize then that it would surface at the exact moment my family least expected it. 3 months after the funeral, the news spread quickly. Evelyn was engaged. Adrian Cole, old money from Connecticut. His family owned a vast portfolio of commercial properties across the East Coast. It was exactly the kind of alliance my parents had always wanted. Wealth securing wealth, status reinforcing status. The wedding was set to take place at the Grand Aurelian Hotel in Manhattan. 400 guests, every detail designed to impress. Daniel Whitaker closed the door and sat across from me, a manila envelope resting in his hands. Your grandmother came to see me 2 years ago, he said. She was very specific about her wishes. What I'm about to show you is separate from her public will. He slid the envelope across the table. Inside were 2 documents and a letter. The first document was a notarized amendment to her estate. I read it once, then again, then a third time, just to be certain. The Reed family jewelry collection, every piece, valued at over $2 million. It belonged to me, not to my mother, not to Evelyn, to me. My fingers trembled as I opened the letter. My dearest Ophelia, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer there. But I need you to understand why I made this choice. Evelyn sees these pieces as trophies, symbols of status meant to impress. But you see their history, their meaning. You understand that beauty is not about possession, it is about preservation. Your mother and sister will be angry. They will say I made a mistake. But I have watched you grow into someone remarkable, even when no one else chose to see it. These pieces belong with someone who will honor them. They belong with you. All my love. Grandmother Margaret. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears slipping down my face. There is one more thing, Mr. Whitaker said gently. She asked that this remain confidential until you decide the right moment to reveal it. I nodded, unable to speak. I placed everything back into the envelope, slipped it into my bag, and walked out of the church carrying a secret that would stay with me for 6 months. At the time, I didn't know where or when I would use it, only that I would. 3 months later, the news arrived. Evelyn was engaged. Adrian Cole, old money from Connecticut. His family owned a vast share of commercial real estate across the East Coast. It was everything my parents had ever wanted. Wealth, joining wealth. Status, reinforcing status. The wedding was set to take place at the Grand Aurelian Hotel in Manhattan. 400 guests, a 6-figure budget, every detail designed to be flawless. I waited for my invitation. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing. I checked my mailbox every morning, refreshed my email more times than I could count. I told myself it had to be delayed, that my own sister wouldn't actually leave me out. Eventually, I called my mother. Mom, I haven't received an invitation to Evelyn's wedding. Should I RSVP directly to her, or She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was careful. Ophelia, Evelyn asked me to speak to you. My stomach dropped. It's just, the wedding is going to be very intimate. She feels it would be better if you didn't attend. Intimate? I almost laughed. I saw her posts. There are hundreds of guests. Another pause. You know how you can be at events like this, my mother said quietly, a bit awkward. We don't want anything to take attention away from Evelyn's day. I said nothing, just held the phone. I understand. I replied finally, thank you for telling me. I hung up. That night, I scrolled through Evelyn's social media, dress fittings, engagement parties, a registry filled with luxury brands, hundreds of comments congratulating her, 400 guests, and not a single place for her own sister. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I made my decision. Let me ask you something. If your own family excluded you like this, what would you do? Would you still show up? Would you walk away? Or would you choose something else entirely? Tell me in the comments. I'm honestly curious. And if you want to see how this unfolds, make sure you subscribe, because what I did next, no one expected. 3 days before the wedding, I booked my flight, San Francisco to New York. One way. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't ask for permission. I packed a small bag and prepared the one thing I needed to bring, a gift. It sat on my kitchen counter in a small silver box tied with a white ribbon. Simple, light, unremarkable. No one would guess what was inside. The night before my flight, I couldn't sleep. I kept questioning myself. Part of me wanted to stay, to avoid another rejection, to pretend I didn't care. But I did. That was the truth. For 28 years, I had been invisible in my own family. I accepted their silence, their favoritism, their quiet cruelty. I built a life 3,000 miles away and told myself it was enough. It wasn't. I wasn't going back for revenge. I wasn't going to create a scene or ruin her wedding. I only wanted one thing, to give my sister a gift, to be seen, just once, as someone who existed. At 6 in the morning, I put on a simple navy dress, applied my lipstick, and stood in front of the mirror. You can do this, I whispered. I picked up the silver box and placed it carefully into my bag. I didn't know what would happen when Evelyn opened it. I didn't know if it would change anything, or nothing at all. But I knew I couldn't carry that truth forever. Some things have to be revealed, and my grandmother had trusted me to choose the right moment. As the plane lifted into the sky, I realized something. That moment had finally arrived. The Grand Aurelian Hotel was even more extravagant than I had imagined. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead. Marble floors reflected the soft glow of golden light. Towering floral arrangements filled the lobby, each one probably costing more than most people's monthly rent. A string quartet played near the entrance as guests in designer gowns and tailored suits drifted toward the ballroom. I stood at the edge of it all, holding my silver box tightly. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I smoothed my dress, a soft rose color, simple but elegant, and walked toward the reception table. Two women dressed in black sat behind a guest list thick enough to look like a book. Good afternoon, I said. I'm here for the Reed Cole wedding. Of course, one of them replied with a polite smile. Name, Please. Ophelia Reed. I'm the bride's sister. Her finger traced down the list. Once, twice, then again. Her smile faded. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name isn't on the list. Could you check again? I asked quietly. Reed? R-E-E-D? She flipped through several pages while the other woman leaned in to help. There's Jonathan Reed, Patricia Reed, Evelyn Reed, soon to be Cole, she said. Then she looked up at me, her expression soft with something like sympathy. But no Ophelia, behind them. The ballroom doors stood open. I could see everything. White tablecloths, towering centerpieces, champagne glasses raised in laughter. Hundreds of guests. 400. Just like I had seen online. And still, no place for me. Ma'am, the receptionist said gently, is there someone I could call for you? No, I replied. That's all right. I'll handle it. I stepped away and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady as I dialed Evelyn. It rang twice before she answered. What is it? Her voice was sharp, impatient. In the background, I could hear music, laughter, glasses clinking. I'm at the hotel, I said. My name isn't on the list. Silence. Then a sigh. I know. I waited. That's because you weren't invited, even though I expected it. It still stung. I'm your sister. She laughed. Cold. Dismissive. You really thought you'd be invited? This wedding is for people who matter. Ophelia. Important people. Not someone who takes pictures for a living. I closed my eyes for a moment. I flew across the country. That's your problem, she said flatly. I didn't ask you to come. I just wanted to give you a gift. I said, to wish you well. A gift, she scoffed. What could you possibly give me that I don't already have? Let me guess. A photo album or a free shoot. I didn't respond. Let me be clear, she continued. No one wants you here. Not Mom. Not Dad. And definitely not me. You've always been an embarrassment to this family. Go home. Ophelia, go back to your little life and stop pretending you belong in mine. I stood there in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by strangers, letting her words settle. I could have argued. I could have shouted. But I didn't. I understand. I said calmly. I'll leave your gift at the table. Fine, she replied. Just don't cause a scene. Then she hung up. I looked at my phone for a moment. Then I smiled, because I knew exactly what was inside that box. And I knew exactly when she would open it. The gift table was overwhelming. Dozens. No. Hundreds of boxes stacked in perfect rows. Tiffany blue, Hermes orange, glossy white with gold ribbons, crystal sets, silver frames, envelopes that clearly held checks with too many zeros, and in my hands, a small, simple silver box. If you think my sister was completely right to keep me out of her wedding, comment right. But if you would never do something like that, comment never. Your opinion matters more than you think. I walked toward the table slowly, the silver box steady in my hands. The receptionist who had turned me away was watching me now. Her expression was uncertain. Maybe sympathetic. Maybe just confused by someone who had been rejected and still hadn't left. I found a small empty space near the edge of the table and placed my gift there. It looked insignificant among everything else. Simple, easy to ignore. I took a card from my purse and slid it beneath the ribbon. To Evelyn. From your sister, Ophelia. Ma'am. I turned. The receptionist had stepped closer, her voice gentle. Are you sure you don't want to stay? I could try speaking with the coordinator. I shook my head and gave her a faint smile. Some gifts speak louder when the person who brought them isn't there. She blinked, unsure how to respond. I glanced once more toward the ballroom doors. Inside, my family was celebrating. My mother was probably praising Evelyn's dress. My father was shaking hands, building connections, and Evelyn, she was exactly where she had always wanted to be, at the center of attention. None of them were thinking about me. That was all right. They would soon. I turned and walked away, past the chandeliers, the music, the perfectly dressed guests. I didn't look back. Outside, the cool autumn air wrapped around me. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and booked the next flight back to San Francisco. As my taxi drove away from the hotel, I allowed myself a small smile. The reception would begin any minute, and sooner or later, Evelyn would open my gift. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back, 2 months earlier, to the moment everything quietly shifted. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing invoices, when my assistant knocked on the door. Ophelia, there's a call for you, she said. Someone named Charlotte Whitmore. My heart skipped. Charlotte Whitmore was one of the most powerful wedding planners on the East Coast, founder of Whitmore & Co., a name trusted by politicians, celebrities, and some of the wealthiest families in the country. She had also been my grandmother Margaret's closest friend. I picked up the phone. Mrs. Whitmore, it's been a long time. Far too long. My dear, she said warmly. Your grandmother spoke of you often. She was incredibly proud of what you've built. My throat tightened. Thank you. I'm calling because I have a bride in New York who needs a photographer. She continued. Very particular, very demanding. She wants the best. And I told her Read Visuals is the best. I appreciate that. I said. There was a brief pause. There's something you should know. Something in her tone made me sit up straighter. The bride is your sister. I went still. Evelyn signed the contract last week. Charlotte went on. She has no idea you own the company. She saw the portfolio and insisted on booking immediately. You knew, I said quietly, and you still recommended us. Your grandmother would have wanted it this way. She replied. She used to say, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Her voice softened. The contract is signed. $15,000 non-refundable deposit. Whether you attend personally, that's entirely your decision. I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window at the city below. My sister had hired me. She had signed a contract with my company, without knowing it belonged to me. And she had no idea. There was something else she didn't know either. About a month before the wedding, she hosted a bridal brunch. I heard about it through Charlotte, who heard it through the usual social circles. 30 women, a private room at the Four Seasons, champagne, carefully curated elegance, and Evelyn at the center of it all, like she had always been. The conversation turned to my grandmother's jewelry collection. The pearls will be my something old, Evelyn had said with a smile. The collection is worth over $2 million. It's been in our family for generations. How incredible that it's going to you. Someone said, "Well, of course." She replied lightly, "I was always Grandma's favorite. She knew I would appreciate those pieces properly, not like my sister." My mother had nodded along, sipping her drink. "Your grandmother adored you," she said. "She always did." What neither of them knew. The collection had already been mine for 6 months. Evelyn had contacted Mr. Whitaker several times, trying to claim it before the wedding. He had delayed her each time, citing ongoing legal matters. She assumed it was just paperwork. She had already ordered a custom display case, already told Adrian's family, already built her image around something that was never hers. She believed she was entitled to it. She believed she had been chosen. She was about to learn the truth, and 400 guests would witness it. Back in the present. My taxi arrived at the airport just as the sun dipped below the skyline. The reception would be starting soon. Dinner would be served. Speeches would follow. The cake would be cut. And at some point, as tradition dictated, the bride would begin opening gifts. I found a seat in the airport lounge and ordered a coffee. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched planes rise into the fading orange sky, their silhouettes cutting through the last light of the day. The world outside felt distant, almost unreal, as if I were suspended between two lives, one I had left behind, and one I had just stepped into. My phone rested on the table in front of me, silent. No calls, no messages, not yet. I thought about my grandmother, the way she used to look at me when no one else did, the quiet certainty in her eyes, the way she listened, really listened, like every word I said mattered. The camera she had placed in my hands when I was 10 years old, the weight of it, the possibility of it, the moment everything began. The most valuable things aren't always the ones people fight over. She had told me. Sometimes they're the ones quietly given to the right person. Now I understood. She had seen everything. The silences, the favoritism, the way I learned to disappear in rooms where I should have belonged. She knew exactly who Evelyn would become. She knew my parents would always choose her. And she made sure that when the time came, I would have the truth. Not revenge, just truth. I took a slow sip of my coffee and glanced at my watch. 7:45. The cocktail hour would be ending. Guests would be finding their seats, smoothing their dresses, adjusting their jackets, settling into the kind of evening that had been planned down to the last detail. Conversations would soften into anticipation. Laughter would quiet just enough for attention to shift toward the stage. The host would be preparing the room, building the moment, inviting Evelyn and Adrian to open a few selected gifts before dessert. My silver box was already there, waiting, small, unremarkable, almost invisible among the luxury surrounding it. Inside it, everything she never expected. A copy of my grandmother's will, her letter, a photograph of the two of us standing outside her favorite jewelry shop, both of us laughing at something only we understood. And one more document, a copy of the contract from Reed Visuals, with my name clearly printed at the bottom. Proof, truth, a lifetime of being unseen, distilled into a single moment she wouldn't be able to ignore. I allowed myself a small smile, not out of satisfaction, not out of revenge, but because, for the first time, I wasn't hiding anymore. Any moment now, Evelyn would reach for that box. And when she did, everything she believed about her life, about our family, about me, would begin to unravel. Nothing would ever be the same again. Let me tell you what was happening back at the Grand Aurelian Hotel while I sat there in silence. The ballroom was breathtaking. Rows of tables dressed in ivory linen stretched across the room, each place setting perfectly aligned. Centerpieces of white roses and hydrangeas rose elegantly toward the glow of crystal chandeliers above, reflecting light like something out of a dream. Soft music drifted through the air, blending with the quiet hum of conversation, as hundreds of guests sat unaware that the night they were witnessing was about to become something none of them would ever forget. A soft orchestra played as waiters in white gloves moved gracefully between tables, serving the final course. The music floated gently through the air, elegant and controlled, matching the tone of the evening. Conversations blended into a low hum, punctuated by soft laughter and the delicate clink of crystal glasses. 400 guests filled the room, New York's elite, the Cole family's powerful connections, Evelyn's carefully selected circle of influence, people who measured worth in reputation, appearance, and proximity to power. And at the center of it all, my sister. She looked flawless in her custom gown, every detail tailored to perfection. Diamonds shimmered at her throat and wrists, catching the chandelier light with every small movement. Her hair was styled to frame her face just right, her smile practiced and radiant. Adrian sat beside her, composed, attentive, the perfect partner. He looked at her the way she had always wanted to be seen, admiring, proud, certain, at the head table. My parents glowed with satisfaction. My mother dabbed at her eyes, overwhelmed, as if everything she had worked toward had finally come together in this single moment. My father stood straighter than usual, shaking hands with Adrian's father, their conversation quiet but meaningful. Two men sealing something far greater than a wedding, an alliance, a legacy, a future carefully arranged. No one mentioned me. No one noticed the empty space where I should have been. It was as if I had never existed in that room at all. Earlier, during the cocktail hour, Evelyn had moved effortlessly from group to group, accepting compliments with practiced grace, air kisses, soft laughter, polished charm. When someone asked about the jewelry she was wearing, she leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough to create intrigue. "Just wait until you see my grandmother's collection," she said, smiling. "I'm inheriting it, over 2 million in heirloom pieces." The reaction was immediate: admiration, envy, approval. Exactly what she wanted. She had always known how to control a room. Now, as dessert approached, the energy shifted. The host stepped forward, microphone in hand, his voice warm and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we cut the cake, the bride and groom would like to share a special moment with you." The room quieted instantly. "Please join us as they open a few gifts." Evelyn clapped her hands lightly, delighted, her excitement perfectly measured. Adrian smiled beside her, relaxed, unaware of what was about to unfold. Nearby, a long table overflowed with gifts, boxes in every size and color: Tiffany blue, Hermes orange, elegant whites and golds, symbols of wealth, status, expectation, and at the very edge of it, almost hidden among the extravagance, was a small silver box tied with a simple white ribbon, unassuming, easy to overlook. Evelyn didn't notice it at first. She approached the table with confidence, like someone stepping into a moment that had always belonged to her. "Let's see what treasures we have," she said playfully, and the room responded with polite laughter. She picked up the first box, a crystal vase, beautiful, expensive, predictable. The next, sterling silver pieces, another smile, another nod. Each gift acknowledged with perfect grace. Then, her hand paused. It rested on the silver box. Something about it, different. She picked it up, turning it slightly, noticing its simplicity among everything else. Her eyes dropped to the card. She read it, and then she laughed. Short, sharp. "Oh, look," she said, loud enough for several nearby tables to hear. "A gift from my sister, the one who couldn't even show up." A ripple of discomfort moved through the closest guests. A few exchanged glances. Adrian frowned slightly, his attention sharpening. "Let's see it," he said. "Probably something handmade," Evelyn replied lightly. "Or one of her photos." There was a hint of mockery beneath her tone. She untied the ribbon slowly, still smiling for the audience. Then she lifted the lid. Inside, a thick envelope. Official, unexpected. Her smile faltered, just for a second. She reached in and pulled out the contents carefully. A legal document, stamped, signed, heavy with authority. Then a handwritten letter. Then a photograph. An older woman and a young girl standing outside a jewelry shop. Both laughing, caught in a moment that felt real in a way nothing else in that room did. Evelyn's eyes moved across the legal document, reading, rereading. Her expression changed. The color drained from her face, then rushed back, then vanished again. "What is it?" Adrian asked quietly, leaning closer. She didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around the paper, then began to tremble. The letter slipped from her grasp and drifted to the floor at a nearby table. My mother noticed immediately. She stood, concern overtaking composure. "Evelyn." "What's wrong?" Evelyn looked up, and for the first time that night, she didn't look perfect. Her expression was fractured, uncertain, afraid. This isn't real," she whispered. "It can't be. Grandma loved me. She would never." Her voice broke completely. The orchestra had stopped playing. The room had fallen silent. 400 eyes fixed on her, waiting, watching. And inside that small silver box, there was still one more document she hadn't opened. My mother reached her just as Evelyn thrust the papers into her hands, her entire body trembling. My mother's eyes moved quickly across the document. The notarized signature, the legal seal, the precise, undeniable language. The words that declared the entire Reed jewelry collection, the sole property of Ophelia Reed. For a moment, she didn't breathe. The color drained from her face, leaving her pale and unsteady. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not," Evelyn said, her voice cracking under the weight of it. "It's dated 2 years ago, before Grandma even got sick." A murmur rippled through the room, soft at first, then growing. The guests closest to the stage leaned forward, eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. They had seen enough already. Evelyn's trembling hands, the disbelief etched across her face. Isn't that the collection she mentioned earlier? Someone whispered. The $2 million? She said it was hers. Evelyn heard them. Her expression twisted, something desperate flashing through her eyes. This is fake, she snapped, lifting the papers like evidence. She forged this. She's always been jealous of me. My father stepped forward, his presence suddenly heavy, controlled. Let me see. He took the document from her and read it carefully, line by line, his silence louder than any denial. Then he bent slightly and picked up the letter from the floor. My grandmother's handwriting. Clear, steady, unmistakable. Evelyn sees these pieces as trophies. Ophelia sees them as memories. I know who will honor my legacy. My father's jaw tightened as he read those words. Jonathan, my mother whispered, her voice thin with fear. Tell me this isn't real. He didn't answer. He couldn't, because he knew. He recognized every curve of that handwriting, every stroke of that signature. And in that moment, something shifted in his expression. Understanding, regret, the quiet realization of how wrong he had been. This can't be happening, Evelyn cried, snatching the letter back, tears spilling freely now. Not today. Not at my wedding. Her voice echoed too loudly in the room that had gone completely silent. Beside her, Adrian stood frozen, still, watching the illusion crumble piece by piece. His gaze moved between the papers, Evelyn, and my parents, as if trying to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the one standing in front of him. Wait, he said suddenly. His voice cut through the silence. His eyes dropped to the box. There's something else. Evelyn followed his gaze slowly, as if afraid of what she might find. At the bottom of the box, half hidden beneath layers of tissue paper, was another folded document. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. A contract. A photography contract. At the top, printed in clean, professional lettering, Reed Visuals Wedding Services Agreement. Her breath caught. Her eyes moved downward. Client Evelyn Reed. Owner Ophelia Reed. Amount paid $15,000, non-refundable. She stared at it, her mind refusing to process what was in front of her. No. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. No. No. Evelyn, Adrian said, taking the paper from her, his expression shifting as understanding set in. You hired her company. His voice was quieter now, sharper. You told me your sister couldn't keep a job, he continued, that she was struggling. I didn't know, Evelyn said, shaking her head, panic rising in every movement. I didn't. She turned suddenly, scanning the room like someone searching for a way out. Where's the photographer? She demanded. Where is she? From the corner of the room. A young woman stepped forward, camera still hanging from her shoulder, her expression cautious. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm the lead photographer, the young woman said carefully. Ophelia Reed is the owner, but she doesn't usually attend events in person. You work for her? Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. The photographer nodded. Reed Visuals has covered over 200 weddings. We're one of the top studios in the country. The room fell silent. 400 guests, all watching Evelyn's world unravel in real time. Someone nearby lifted a phone. Did she say 2 million? A voice whispered. And her sister owns a company like that. The one she called a failure. Adrian still held the contract. His face unreadable. Evelyn, he said quietly. What else have you lied about? She didn't answer. Her hands were already reaching for her phone. She needed to call me, to scream, to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Let me pause here for a second. If you saw this coming, comment I knew it. And if you didn't, stay with me. Because what happens next changes everything. The whispers grew louder, spreading across the room. Evelyn stood at the head table, mascara streaking down her face, the documents clutched in her hands. My parents stood beside her, just as shaken. Then Charlotte Whitmore stepped forward. She had been watching quietly from the side, the woman who had planned every detail of this wedding. Now she moved with calm authority. If I may, she said. The room quieted. She took the document from Evelyn's hands and examined it briefly. This is authentic, she said clearly. I was present when Margaret Reed signed this amendment 2 years ago. I also witnessed her discuss it with her attorney. My mother stepped forward. Charlotte, you can't possibly, I can. She replied gently but firmly. Margaret was my closest friend for 40 years. She told me exactly why she made this decision. Then tell us, Evelyn said, her voice breaking. Why would she do this? Charlotte looked at her, almost with pity. She said Evelyn sees jewelry as trophies. Charlotte continued. Ophelia sees them as memories. Her voice was calm, steady. She also said, your sister was the only one who ever loved her for who she was, not what she owned. The words settled heavily across the room. Near the back, someone had already started recording. Charlotte folded her hands. She told me something else. She added softly. Ophelia never asked her for anything. Evelyn never stopped asking. That mattered to her. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. And 400 people had heard every word. Then another voice spoke from the back. There's something else everyone should know. A man in his 60s stood up, distinguished, composed. I know Ophelia Reed, he said. She photographed my daughter's wedding in Malibu. 600 guests. She was exceptional. A ripple moved through the crowd. Another guest raised her hand. Ophelia Reed, from Reed Visuals. They handled our foundation gala. They've been featured in Vogue. More voices followed. They shot the Whitmore ceremony. They're booked years in advance. I heard she turns down celebrity clients. Evelyn shook her head, disbelief written all over her face. That's not possible, she said. She just takes pictures. She's nobody. She's very successful. The man replied calmly. Her company made over 3 million last year. She's one of the most sought-after photographers on the West Coast. My mother grabbed the back of a chair. 3 million, she whispered. My father stood still, silent, processing, recalculating. She never told us, he said under his breath. Why would she? The man replied. From what I can see, you weren't interested in listening. Evelyn turned to Adrian, desperate. This doesn't change anything, she said. She's still trying to ruin me. She's still stop. His voice cut through everything. Cold. Final. Evelyn fell silent. And in that silence, the truth settled over the room, miles away. My phone began to ring. I was still sitting in the airport lounge, finishing my second coffee, watching the last light disappear beyond the skyline. Evelyn's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring, then again, and again, 5 times, 10, 15. Then my mother, then my father. The messages started flooding in. Ophelia, pick up the phone right now. You ruined everything. How could you do this to me? Call me immediately. We need to talk. This is unacceptable. I will never forgive you. Everyone is staring at me. What was in that box? The messages kept coming. My screen lit up over and over with their anger, their panic, their demands. 47 missed calls by the time I finished my coffee. I muted my phone and slipped it into my bag. Flight now boarding. The agent announced. I stood, gathered my things, and walked toward the gate. Around me, life moved on as usual. Families reuniting, couples saying goodbye, travelers focused on their screens. No one there knew what had just happened across the city. No one knew a family had fractured in front of hundreds of witnesses. No one knew the truth had finally surfaced. I handed over my boarding pass and walked down the jetway, just before turning off my phone. One more message appeared. Not from Evelyn, not from my parents. From Adrian. Ophelia. This is Adrian Cole. I'm sorry to contact you like this. I got your number from the contract. I paused at the entrance of the plane, passengers moving around me. I kept reading. I need to understand what happened tonight. Evelyn won't explain anything. She just keeps saying you betrayed her. Another message followed. She told me you were unstable, that you couldn't keep a job, that your family had to distance themselves from you. My chest tightened. I believed her. I never questioned it. I never tried to hear your side. I see now that was a mistake. A flight attendant gently touched my arm. Ma'am, please take your seat. I nodded and moved to my row. Still reading. The reception ended early. Many guests left after Charlotte spoke. Your parents are asking questions I can't answer. I don't know what to believe anymore. I fastened my seatbelt as the final message came in. I'm not asking you to explain anything. You don't owe me that. But I wanted to say I'm sorry for believing her without question. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I replied, Thank you for reaching out. Adrian, I don't hold anything against you. Whatever you decide. I hope you find clarity. His response came almost immediately. The wedding is over. I just don't know if the marriage is. I need time to think about everything. I read his message once more, then turned off my phone as the plane began to move. Time. That was the one thing none of us could ever get back. The flight to San Francisco was quiet. I sat by the window, watching the lights of the city fade beneath the clouds, thinking about Adrian's message, about Evelyn's anger frozen in text, about my parents demanding answers. But the truth was, I had nothing to explain. I hadn't forged anything. I hadn't manipulated anyone. I hadn't done anything except deliver the truth my grandmother had trusted me with. The truth about the jewelry. The truth about who I had become. The truth my family had refused to see for 28 years. Somewhere in the darkness, I made a decision. I wouldn't call Evelyn back. I wouldn't answer my parents. I wouldn't apologize, defend myself, or beg to be understood. For most of my life, I had accepted being overlooked. I made myself smaller, quieter, hoping that one day they would finally notice me. I was done hoping. As the plane crossed the mountains, I opened my notes and wrote a single line. I won't close the door on them, but I won't hold it open forever either. They would have to choose to walk through it. That was my boundary. If Evelyn truly apologized, I would listen. If my parents wanted to know me, I would give them a chance. But I wouldn't chase them anymore. I wouldn't prove my worth to people who had never tried to see it. I put my phone away and closed my eyes. By the time we landed, the sun was rising over the ocean. It felt like something had ended, or maybe something had just begun. Either way, I was ready. I didn't know about the video until the next morning. Jenna was already waiting when I walked into the office. She held out her phone, her expression caught between shock and disbelief. Ophelia, you need to see this. It was a TikTok video, already past 2 million views, and climbing. The caption read, "Rich bride discovers her failure. Sister is actually a millionaire." Someone at the wedding had filmed everything. I watched as Evelyn stood at the head table, her expression shifting from confident to confused to completely shattered as she read the documents. The video captured Charlotte's voice, the murmurs in the crowd, a guest revealing my company, Adrian telling her to stop talking. The comments flooded endlessly. The quiet ones are always the ones you underestimate. Her grandmother knew exactly who deserved that. This is the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. She got exposed in front of 400 people. I scrolled through thousands of reactions. Strangers who didn't know me, cheering for me. "Your name is trending," Jenna said softly. Read visuals got over 300 inquiries overnight. I sat down slowly. I hadn't asked for any of this. I didn't film it. I didn't post it. I didn't want attention. I just wanted my family to see me. But now, the whole world did. My phone buzzed. An email. A reporter requesting an interview about the video. I deleted it. Cancel my meetings today. I told Jenna, I need time, because I knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. 3 days later, my mother showed up. I was in my office reviewing photos when my receptionist called. "Ophelia, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother." I closed my eyes for a second, then stood and walked out. She was standing in the lobby, looking out of place, still perfectly dressed. Pearl earrings, silk blouse, immaculate hair, but her eyes were red, uncertain. She looked around slowly. At the reception desk, the awards, the framed magazine covers. "All of this is yours?" she asked when she saw me. "Yes." "You never told us. You never asked." She flinched. I led her into my office and closed the door. She sat across from me, her hands tightly clasped. "I came to talk about what happened," she said, her voice unsteady. I thought, "You ruined your sister's wedding." "I wasn't at the wedding," I replied calmly. "I wasn't invited. You know what I mean. That gift. That stunt." I leaned back slightly. "The documents were real," I said. "The will is valid. Everything in that box was true." But why, she asked. Why humiliate her like that? I didn't. I said evenly. She did that to herself. I met her eyes. She spent months claiming something that was never hers. She lied to her fiancé about me. She told everyone I was a failure. Her face collapsed. Mom, I said quietly, leaning forward. I spent 28 years being invisible to this family. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for honesty. She stared at me, and for the first time, she really looked. Her gaze moved slowly around the room, the windows overlooking the city, the awards, the framed features, the work I had built, alone. Her eyes stopped on a photo, me and my grandmother, laughing together, and then she broke. Not the polite tears she showed in public, real ones, messy, uncontrolled. We failed you, she said, her voice shaking. I failed you. I stayed silent. I let her take everything. She wiped her face with trembling hands. Evelyn always demanded so much. She was loud about what she wanted. And you, I thought that meant you were fine, she whispered. I thought you didn't need us. I stopped needing you, I said quietly, because I knew you wouldn't be there. She flinched, like the truth had struck something deep. I thought we were giving Evelyn more attention because she needed it. She continued, her voice shaking. But that wasn't true. We taught her to need it. And we taught you not to hope. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard. Your grandmother tried to tell me, she said softly. She said I was losing you. I didn't listen. I thought she was exaggerating. Her eyes met mine, red and raw. I don't expect forgiveness. Ophelia, I just needed you to know. I see it now. I see what I did. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. Then I gave a small nod. Not forgiveness, but something close to a beginning. Before she left, she hesitated at the door. There's something else, she said. Adrian postponed the honeymoon. He's staying with his parents. He says he needs time. To think. To decide if he still wants the marriage, I asked. She nodded. The video made everything worse. It's everywhere. Millions of views. People at Evelyn's company have seen it. Her boss asked her to take a leave until things settle down. I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, not relief. Just wait. There's more, she added. Adrian's parents called your father. They wanted to know if there were other lies. You know how they are. Reputation matters. And Evelyn. She tried to explain. Said you manipulated everything. That your grandmother wasn't thinking clearly. My mother let out a quiet, bitter laugh. But Charlotte told them the truth. So Evelyn lost more than the jewelry. She lost trust, respect, the image she had spent her life building. She blames you, my mother said. She says you did this on purpose. I didn't destroy anything, I replied calmly. I just stopped pretending. She nodded slowly, then picked up her bag. At the door, she turned back. Your grandmother always said you were the strongest one, she said, her voice breaking. I think I finally understand why. Then she left. I stayed in my office long after, watching the light fade over the city. I didn't feel strong, but I wasn't broken either. That night, I stayed late. The building was quiet, empty. I sat at my desk, looking out as the sky shifted from gold to deep blue. The photo of my grandmother rested beside me. I picked it up. Her smile, the way she always saw me. Did you plan all of this? I asked softly. There was no answer, but I could almost hear her voice. I only planted the seeds. Darling, you chose to grow. I thought about my family, about Evelyn facing the consequences of her own choices, about my mother finally seeing clearly, about my father, likely rethinking everything. I didn't want to punish them forever, but I couldn't go back to being invisible. So I made a decision. The door wouldn't be closed, but it wouldn't stay open forever either. If Evelyn truly apologized, I would listen. If my parents wanted to know me, I would give them a chance. But I wouldn't chase them. I wouldn't shrink myself for their approval. They would have to meet me as I am. Or not at all. I wrote it down. I won't close the door, but I won't hold it open forever. That was my boundary. Clear, firm, final. For the first time in my life, I knew what I deserved, and I wasn't willing to accept less. A week later, I went to the bank. The Reed collection was kept in a private vault. 12 pieces, each one extraordinary. Pearls from another era, Art Deco diamonds, a sapphire brooch once worn by royalty. I held them carefully, not as objects, but as stories, as memories. Evelyn had wanted them as symbols, to display, to impress. But my grandmother had always seen them differently. Beauty isn't about possession. She had written, it's about preservation. Now, I understood. I arranged for the most historically significant pieces to be loaned to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. They would be displayed with a plaque honoring Margaret Reed's legacy. The rest, I kept secured, not as objects to own, but as stories to protect. One day, if I had children, they would inherit more than jewelry. They would inherit meaning. As I was leaving the vault, the bank manager stopped me. There was something else in the box, he said, handing me a sealed envelope. Inside was a short note. My darling Ophelia, there is one more thing I didn't tell you. I left Evelyn something as well. A small pearl bracelet that once belonged to my mother. It is simple, not valuable, but meaningful, if she ever understands it. I hope one day she will. All my love. Grandmother Margaret. I stood there, holding the letter, and let the tears fall, even in her absence. She still believed Evelyn could change. Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, I would honor her in the only way I knew how, by becoming the person she always believed I was. 6 months passed. I was still in San Francisco, still running Reed Visuals, still building the life I had created on my own. The video faded, like everything eventually does. My name was no longer trending. The calls from reporters stopped, but some things had changed. My mother called once a week. At first, the conversations were awkward, careful, but slowly, they became real. She asked about my work, and for the first time, she listened. My father wrote me a letter, 3 pages, handwritten, apologizing for years he could never get back. I haven't responded yet. I'm still thinking about what to say. Evelyn and Adrian started therapy. She called me once, the first time since the wedding. She didn't apologize, not really. But she didn't attack me either. I'm trying to understand, she said. Maybe that's all she could give. For now. If there's one thing I've learned from everything that happened, it's this: being unseen doesn't mean you are unworthy. It just means you were standing in a place that never chose to see you. For most of my life, I believed something was wrong with me. I thought if I worked harder, stayed quieter, achieved more, eventually, I would earn love, earn attention, earn my place. But the truth is, love is not something you should have to earn by shrinking yourself. And the moment I stopped trying to fit into the space they had defined for me was the moment I finally began to live. I used to think strength meant enduring everything silently, accepting less, being the easy one, the understanding one, the one who never complains. But now I know that's not strength, that's survival. Real strength is choosing yourself when it would be easier to keep disappearing. It's setting boundaries even when your voice shakes. It's walking away, not because you don't care, but because you finally care about yourself enough. What happened at that wedding wasn't revenge. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about truth. And sometimes, truth is uncomfortable. It breaks illusions. It forces people to see what they've ignored for years. But truth also frees you. It gives you something no one can take away: clarity. I also learned that people will often believe the loudest story, not the truest one. For years, my silence allowed others to define who I was. And I let that happen. Not because I agreed, but because I thought speaking up wouldn't matter. I was wrong. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And the longer you hide it, the easier it becomes for others to rewrite it. And maybe the hardest lesson of all is that not everyone will change just because you finally tell the truth. Some people will apologize. Some will try. Some will never understand. And that's okay. Healing isn't about forcing others to become who you needed them to be. It's about deciding who you are, regardless of them. I didn't get the family I deserved, but I built a life I'm proud of. And in the end, that mattered more. So if you're watching this right now, and you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or like you didn't belong in your own story, I want you to remember this. You are not invisible. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know how to see you. And one day, if you choose yourself, the right people will. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Truly, it means more than you think. And if this story made you feel something, even just a little, then your support can help it reach someone else who might need it right now. Someone who's still questioning their worth. Someone who hasn't found their voice yet. A simple action from you, a like, a comment, or a subscription might seem small, but it can help this story travel further than I ever could alone. It can help someone feel less alone. It can help someone choose themselves for the first time. So if you believe in stories like this, if you believe people deserve to be seen, then I invite you to be part of that. Because by supporting this channel, you're not just watching a story, you're helping change one.